Start. So I'm going to be telling you about why beer is the most important drink on the planet. It's not just something to chug down on a Saturday night. It's the drink of the gods. It changed humankind. It gave us farms, it gave us culture, society, and everything that made us civilized. So we need to know a little bit about what beer is in order to get to that point. It's a fermented drink made up of 4 key ingredients: water, a malted grain, usually barley, a bittering agent, a herb such as hops, for flavour, aroma and preservatives, and yeast, which ferments the whole lot. So of those ingredients, you might wonder what malted grain means. Generally in beer it's barley, and it's undergone a process that releases starch to be turned into fermenting sugars. Malting involves getting the grains wet and warm and tricking them into thinking it's spring. So grains are then mashed, which means make it into a porridge. The grains are kept between 65 and 70 degrees Celsius for an hour, and then some magic happens. Some starches are turned into sugars, and the resulting mixture is known as wort. This wort is then boiled. Hops are added for bitterness. That balances the sweet wort. In the past, herbs were used with rather delightful narcotic properties. The wort is cooled, yeast is added, and it starts to ferment, and within 3 days we have beer. Now, beer's been made like this for about 10,000 years. The first beers would have been hard work. If you've ever tried to forage, which I'm sure some of you have, enough grains to make some beer, then you'll soon find out it's a long, laborious task for not much beer. So we started to farm as we wanted to work less and drink more. I mean, imagine having 1 beer a year. That's just not right. It's a travesty. Also, it was many years before we made bread. We always made beer before that. In order to farm, you have to stay in one place, so you have to store stuff. So beer gave us the first farms. It also gave us land ownership, the first permanent dwellings or houses, the first villages, in other words, the building blocks of civilization. And this all happened in an area that's now known as Iraq. The irony that Iraq only has 1 brave brewery left. It's a subsidiary of the Dutch brewing giant Amstel. They make 2 lagers, which are apparently just about passable. So Iraq, from its ancient Babylonian times, has the longest tradition of beer drinking in the world. And here's a picture of 2 people drinking beer and how it would have traditionally been drunk. And you can see there's 2 people sharing the beer, so it would have been drunk, so you're both imbibing the same thing at the same time. And so considering how complex beer is, and everything we have to do, what benefits does it have? And actually getting pissed is one of them. That's someone who's very pissed. So we humans live in groups, and therefore we need to get along. And there's George W. Bush getting along with a rabbit. It seemed to fit. So we need to not bash against the system, and we need to, So on occasion, we need something that helps us let loose, to help us get loose of that just getting along and that sort of boringness, to break free from the herd. And football's relatively recent, so us men needed something before that, and so we had beer. But don't forget hangovers too. They're another important tool, and that's me. The guilt that's left when a hangover deprives you of vitamin B12, you could have verbally abused the tribal leader or something like that, and so afterwards you sort of put yourself into check, and that's why we have hangovers as well. Beer's given us towns, cities, social mobility within them, and it's helped awkward teenagers have confidence for 10 millennia. But what else has beer given us? What of culture? Surely beer didn't give us culture. Well, yes, it did. It gave us the written word. This tablet's one of the oldest examples of writing. If you look at the crude symbols on this ancient Sumatran tablet, you'll see some jugs. They're the symbols for beer. So that tablet was the first ever bar tab. But not only that, the first ever written recipe is for beer, and it was handed down by the god Enki. The words form part of a hymn to the goddess of beer, Ninanski, and it dates back to over 4,000 years, which is 2,000 years BD, or before Delia. So for me, I'm one of the UK's best-selling homebrew authors, and it means I'm following a very civilised tradition that dates back thousands of years, part of a noble tradition that furthers mankind and includes gods. So beer's given us towns, cities, farming, writing, authors, books, accountancy. It's the drink of the civilised. It's my favourite drink. It's the drink of leaders, such as these 2. But I'll finish with the words of a true God, and that God's, of course, Frank Zappa, who said, "You can't be a real country unless you have beer. An airline helps, and it helps you if you have a football team too, or nuclear weapons, but at the very least, you need beer." Thank you.